Ms. Blackshear, are there any citizens registered to speak?
Yes, Your Honor. I have 10 citizens who are registered to speak. I would like to state the 3-minute time limit. As you address the commission, we ask that you state your name and address for the record. At that time, I will turn on a green light. When the green light comes on, you will have 3 minutes to speak. After you have spoken 2.5 minutes, a yellow light will come on. You would then have 30 seconds remaining to speak. When the red light comes on, you will be asked to cease your comments and to take your seat. To the audience in attendance, I ask everyone to be respectful by refraining from any utterance, gesture, or conversation that will prevent the City Commission from hearing the speaker's comments. I call to the podium Bishop Richard Cox. You state your name and address for the record, please.
I'm Bishop Richard Cox, 3044 Jewelstone Drive, Dayton, Ohio.
You may begin.
I'm standing here for those persons who are disabled, and I'm appalled and upset at the deplorable actions of the Dayton Police Department, the way they treated Mr. Owensby. They disrespected him, they violated his civil rights, they could have issued him a ticket, but they chose to pull him out of his car by his dreadlocks. Is that the way you treat disabled people? You owe us an apology. And not only for every disabled African American and every disabled person in this city in general, we are demanding an apology. And we're demanding that those officers immediately be fired. You put them back on the street. They don't deserve to be Dayton police officers. We spent time on the police reform committee, and this is what we get? That you can humiliate disabled people like that? The man said, I can't get out of the car. He told you why. He asked for a supervisor. But the FOP comes out and said, sometimes when you arrest Dayton citizens, it's not pretty, but they followed the law. It wasn't pretty, and it was unlawful, and we ain't having it. We want you to apologize. We want these officers fired immediately. We're demanding that. Y'all should be ashamed of yourselves. The Dayton Police Department acting like that towards citizens who pay taxes. We're demanding it. It's not over. And y'all investigating yourselves. Maybe the Justice Department needs to come in here and investigate the Dayton Police Department. This is going to stop. My wife is disabled. She couldn't get out of the car if she was stopped. I'm disabled. So you're going to reach in there and pull me out and I'm a citizen that paid taxes? This is taxation without representation. And I'm telling y'all something. Y'all pulling the wool over these people's eyes in this city by having us have a police chief, and we don't know what y'all doing. Y'all doing stuff and then y'all telling us what y'all going to do. That's going to stop too. Must we police ourselves? In the 1960s, we wouldn't even allow white police officers to come on the west side. Do we have to call the Nation of Islam and have the FOI come in here, or the Black Panther Party, or do we have to get some strong black men to police our own communities? Shame on y'all. Where's our apology?
Thank you, Mr. Cox.
Iris Blanchard.
Good morning.
Your name,
Mayor Whaley.
your name and address for the record, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Iris Blanchard. My address is 329 Imogene Road, Dayton, Ohio, 45405.
You may begin.
Okay. Good morning, Mayor, City Commissioners. On behalf of the concerned visionary citizens, I'm here to address the ongoing gang violence that for years have permeated our community, not only in Dayton, but throughout Montgomery County. They are a menace on the community and have touched many families, my family members included. It is time for the city commissioners to show some vestibular fortitude and eradicate this nuisance. That gang is the Dayton Police Department and other law enforcement bullies that operate violently with impunity within Dayton's jurisdictions. No longer can you hide behind union contracts or placated buzzwords such as transparency and accountability. On behalf of Clifford Owens, we want the police officers involved in the violations of his rights placed on leave without pay, subsequently fired, pensions withheld, and appropriate legal actions taken. Otherwise, city commissioners, you are part of the gang violence.
Thank you, Ms. Blanchard.
LaRonda Jackson. Name and address for the record,
Good
please.
morning. My name is LaRonda Jackson. My address is 4525 North Glen Court, Englewood, Ohio, 45322.
You may begin.
I am here because I am angry. I am deeply disturbed by the treatment of Mr. Owensby. I may be friends with a few of you all. We may have a relationship, but right is right and wrong is wrong. What I witnessed on that video was a violation of his civil rights. In my opinion, it doesn't matter why he was stopped, what it was suspected that he was doing. He had rights. He could have had a kilo in his vehicle. He should have never been dragged by his hair, and that is problematic. The fact that he could not walk was not a surprise, in my opinion, because those officers said he had a history with them. They already knew him, so that means they already knew he couldn't walk. Beyond the fact that he couldn't walk, let's say he could walk, he still did not deserve to be dragged. That makes this crime more egregious. If I took my neighbor's dog and I pulled him down the street by his tail, I would be charged with animal endangerment. We know this nation has a history of not believing people with brown skin are humans. He is Mr. Owensby. If he needed to be arrested, detained, or whatever, that's what should have happened. He didn't need to be carried down the street. He could have been helped out of his vehicle and sat on the ground until a more professional group could come and take care of him. These 8 steps, this police reform, these trainings, all took a huge step backwards. Nan, I'm looking at you because you are my friend, and I'm saying to you, this was an epic failure. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson.
Alson Youngblood. Is Allison?
Hello. My name is Allison Youngblood. My address is 111 Livingston Avenue, Dayton, Ohio, 45403.
You may begin.
I'm here on the behalf of Clifford Owensby. He's a paraplegic father of 7. On September the 30th, he had a 3-year-old watching in horror in the back seat as his father was drug out of his car, screaming, "I'm a paraplegic, you can hurt me." He was thrown to the ground, forcibly smashing his head into the street, being threatened to be tased, knee in his back, with being handcuffed and drug up the street, and to add on to the disrespect, the officer threw a shoe into the vehicle. On the camera, the officers clearly stated that he unlawfully wanted a canine to enter the car because of Mr. Owensby's past. So I would imagine if they knew on their dashboard that it showed his past, that it also showed that he was disabled. The treatment of the disabled that I've witnessed and been a part of myself by Dayton police officers is deplorable. And also to go back on the initial reasoning that he was pulled over, to change it to child restraint and window tint was a farce. The Dayton Black Panther Party, against members in our own party, worked with Dayton Police Reform for transparency, and to be smacked in the face, being smacked in the face, us and the community, for disturbing and deplorable actions of the Dayton police officers. Just to think what would have happened if the cameras hadn't been on. We're demanding that these officers be terminated immediately, but until they are, they should be, the officers in the Clifford Owensby case should not be allowed on the streets. They need to be suspended until the investigation's over. A public apology from all the officers, including in this attack, as well as the one from the police chief for wrongdoing of yet another black person in the Dayton community. In an institution outside the city of Dayton needs to conduct an independent, transparent investigations into the officer's use of force on Mr. Owensby, not hired through the Dayton Police Department. The city of Dayton also immediately should implement changes to the Dayton Police Department use of force policy as recommended by the use of force into a working group. But as again, like I said, these actions are deplorable, and I've witnessed it before, recently. So I demand myself that these officers be fired. They should not be allowed to walk the streets, and they need to publicly apologize to this man and his son for being terrorized the way that they just terrorized him recently. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Youngblood.
Thank you. Tommy Owens Jr. Name and address for the record, please.
Tommy Owens Jr., 1434 Cornell Drive, Dayton, Ohio.
You may begin.
16 times, I counted, 16 times, Clifford Owensby said, I'm a paraplegic and I cannot move. 16 times he told the officer this. Unbelievable. All eyes right now is on Dayton, Ohio. From CNN to D.L. Hughley to Steve Harvey, everybody's talking about Dayton, Ohio. Guys, I'm a friend of a lot of you guys up here, but I belong to the community more than I belong to anybody up here. You guys have an obligation to make sure that this is taken care of. We voted you in the office, and we can vote you out of the office. Election is coming. The election is coming. You want our votes? Mayor, you're looking for a higher plateau. Well, if you can't take care of the city of Dayton, how are you going to be able to take care of the state of Ohio? Today I came in not in my suit. I came in my shirt, Cassius Clay, because I'm ready to fight. I came in my fatigue because it's time to go to war. And I came in my Nikes because it's time to do it. You guys, we placed you on this council because we expected for you guys to handle business accordingly. If any of us citizens would have done what the police officers did, we'd have been thrown in jail without any let me get that together. We'd have been thrown in jail and we wouldn't have been placed on any leave or anything like that. So I'm demanding today that there's demands that we have. We demand that all the police that are involved in this are paid without administration, are paid without, suspended without any leave. We publicly ask for apology from all the officers, as well as the police chief, for the wrongdoing. And the city of Dayton immediately charged the Dayton police officers with the force. Please do the right thing and make sure we apologize to Mr. Owensby and make sure that these officers are charged. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Owens.
Deja Demings. Name and address for the record, please.
Deja Demings, 4654 Owens Drive, 45406.
You may begin.
Good morning. You know why we're all here. I know that you guys might not necessarily be able to do exactly what we're asking, but you have the influence. And that's what we're asking for today. Thank you for your prayer this morning. I really hope it worked, because that's what it's going to take. It takes prayer. It takes people. It takes you guys. It takes all of us to make sure that we are holding these people accountable. That was pure hatred. That was past use of force. My hair is locked. We're going to stop calling them dreads, too, by the way. Wow. Wow. We expect all the officers in the Clifford Owensby case to not be on the street. That's mind-blowing that they're still out there. That means they could be doing it to someone else. They need to be suspended until the investigation is over. A public apology from all officers included in this attack, as well as the police chief for the wrongdoing of yet another black person in this community. We demand an institution outside the city of Dayton to conduct an independent and transparent investigation into the officer's use of force on Mr. Owensby, not hired by Dayton Police Department. We demand the city of Dayton immediately implement all changes to the DPD use of force policy as recommended by the Use of Force Working Group. As somebody that was a part of the working groups for the last year, this did not feel good. As somebody who is very busy, it almost feels like a waste of time. Let's not waste each other's time. You guys don't have time to waste. We don't have time to waste. And now people have nothing but time to speak up about things that are right and that are wrong. We know right is right and wrong is wrong. Let's hold our fellow comrades, or whatever you want to call it, accountable. You have the influence. All of you, you have the influence. You run the city. Please do the right thing.
Thank you, Ms. Demings.
Julio Mateo. Name and address for the record, please.
Julio Mateo, 215 Ice Avenue, Unit 400.
You may begin.
Over 15 months ago, this commission tasked 5 working groups with developing recommendations for reforming the Dayton Police Department. This commission designed the process, appointed all members, committed to accept or reject all recommendations within 30 days, and committed to task the city manager with implementing accepted recommendations as soon as possible. The group, co-led by Commissioner Mims, was specifically tasked with recommended changes to the use of force policies. It included members from the DPD, the City Law Department, the Public Defender's Office, faith leaders, and other community members. Community members who volunteer hundreds of hours to research, develop, and refine sound recommendations based on the best practices in police force policy. Over 6 months after submittal, the Commission has yet to accept the most important of these recommendations. In light of Owensby's case, it is worth revisiting which recommendations this Commission has delayed accepting and as a result has delayed implementing. They include revisions to the current DPD use of force policy so that 1, officers are required to respect the sanctity of human life, avoid unnecessary use of force. 2, officers use force as a last resort, and then only that force which is necessary, proportional to the level of non-compliance being encountered, and objectively reasonable. And 3, officers must use reasonable measures to de-escalate an incident, must refrain from engaging in overtly aggressive behavior that increases the likelihood of use of force, and must intervene in instances of excessive force. We were told that this commission had not accepted these recommendations because of legal concerns, yet these recommendations were drafted by an attorney and include language taken verbatim from police policies currently in effect in other jurisdictions in Ohio. Mr. Owensby's case touches on almost all of these recommendations. Officers escalated the situation, used more force than necessary, used force not proportional to the non-compliance they encountered, and other officers did not intervene. Adopting the proposed force policy changes in a timely manner could have prevented the treatment to which Mr. Owensby was subjected. And adopting them today could still prevent other cases like this from happening in the future. We demand that this commission commits to ensuring that 1, the officers involved are immediately suspended without pay until the investigation is completed. 2, the officers involved and Interim Chief Carper offer a public apology to Mr. Owensby and his family for the officers' treatment of Mr. Owensby. 3, that an institution outside the city of Dayton conducts an independent and transparent investigation into the officers' use of force on Mr. Owensby. And 4, that the city of Dayton immediately implement all changes to the DPD use of force as recommended by the Use of Force Working Group that this commission appointed. Thank Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mateo.
Melissa Bertello. Your name and address for the record, please.
Melissa Bertolo, 1137 Harvard Boulevard, Dayton, Ohio, 45406.
You may begin.
Good morning, Mayor, Commissioners, City Manager, and staff. I'd like to share a story with you. And the story is not exciting or illuminating, and it really shouldn't be a surprise. It demonstrates the contrast in which people are treated based on the color of their skin by police. A few weeks ago, my sister was on her way home from Indianapolis, and she was pulled over by the police for going more than 20 miles per hour over the speed limit. She was driving her husband's car, didn't have proof of insurance, and didn't even have an ability to demonstrate the car was her husband's, as they don't have the same last name. Now, what do you think happened? Nothing, of course. Not even a ticket. Instead, she was told to slow down and be careful out there. The officer then also moved a tire out of the way so she wouldn't have difficulty merging back with the traffic. After this encounter, she called me to process this, as she recognized the privilege that she carried in that interaction. And now let's compare this story with that of Mr. Owensby. Mr. Owensby is stopped under what we all know is a pretext to be able to stop someone, the tint of their windows being too dark. And unfortunately, we all know and have seen what happened in Mr. Owensby's interaction with the police. And no surprise here, it wasn't the same as what happened with my sister. He did not receive the same dignity and respect that he deserves as a human being, and then the officers also escalated the situation and used excessive force. We have to recognize with urgency the difference that people are treated by the police by the color of their skin. It's a difference between being told to be careful and one of excessive force. It's a difference that can result in life or death. And this is a difference that Black and brown people have known all of their lives. It's something that is taught to young children, and it's something that was finally cracked open and recognized by white mainstream America after the murder of George Floyd. And this difference was also finally recognized by you, the local government, and our local police department. After Dayton Police's own use of excessive force in the protest last summer, the city of Dayton, you, the commission, seemed to understand the challenges of bias in policing weren't something that our police department is immune to. You all claimed that Black Lives Matter. You declared racism as a public health crisis. And most importantly, you moved forward with some police reform work. I'd like to draw your attention to the fact that 3 recommendations of the police reform working group were delayed for 6 months. They have been under legal review. 6 months does not demonstrate the commitment that you all made, and it certainly does not demonstrate the urgency or recognize the police brutality and excessive use of force that is continuing and will continue until you take action. I'm here to demand that the officers involved are immediately placed on leave without pay.
Thank you, Ms. Bertello. Could we have quiet in the chambers, please? Carlos Buford. State your name and address for the record, please.
Carlos Buford, 2130 Della Drive, Dayton, Ohio.
You may begin.
First, before I start, I want to let the Owensby family know that Black Lives Matter Dayton stands firmly behind them, as well as their family, and also those activists who stand behind me. We stand behind you all. Mayor Nan Whaley, Commissioners Shaw, Joseph, Mims, and Fairchild. On July 7th, the Black Lives Matter Dayton team submitted our intent on how the American Rescue Plan Act funds could be used to develop a state-of-the-art outdoor roller skating rink that reintroduces the culture of skating back into our community. Today, we want to contribute our ideas on what that outdoor roller skating rink could do to enhance healthy family activities. Some of the amenities could include shelters for family gatherings, a kids area, food vendors, a stage area for community events, sound system for entertaining, volleyball and basketball court, a movie screen, a space where family and local drill teams can hold competitions. All those amenities were extracted from a 3-day survey of what Dayton residents would like to see added to potential outdoor roller skating rink here in Dayton. To get a better sense of what an actual skating rink looks like, the Black Lives Matter Dayton team traveled to Dalewood, Missouri, a small town 5 minutes from Ferguson, Missouri. We met with their city administrator, including the engineer who designed Dalewood's first of its kind outdoor roller skating rink, which opened up in October 2020. Mayor Nan Whaley, city commissioners, the city of Dalewood provided us with a complete rendering of their outdoor skating rink and the bids and costs of their project. They wish us well and have offered to be of help where needed. In closing, we ask that you allow the Black Lives Matter Dayton team, Christopher Landrum, Elizabeth Gaines, Michael Motley, David Fox, and myself to be a part of the process in making the outdoor roller skating rink a reality for the future of Westside Dayton community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Buford.
Thank you. Christopher Lockett. State your name and address for the record, please.
I'm Christopher Lockett, and I'm homeless. You want me to give you my mailing address?
No, you're fine.
All right.
You may begin.
My heart heavy, so bear with me, please. I decided to write this because I didn't want to be scattered and all over the place. It's a very sentimental topic, and I want to address it as such. I want to start by saying I'm a victim of police brutality in Dayton myself. And though I'm a convicted felon in Montgomery County, I served all my time, completed all my probation and parole requests, and I paid all my dues and restitution in full. Yet and still, I myself and others of my culture and my community are constantly being mistreated and handled like criminals. At 19 years old, I was literally railroaded and taken advantage of by a system I thought would show care and concern to a confused, ignorant little black boy from a broken home like myself. Because honestly, those are the kids that we need to focus on and put in position to be successful. Y'all done took away the rec centers, a lot of them anyway, and that's crazy because these kids ain't got nothing to do after school. So it's up to me to come from the mud, from nothing, get my mind right, to put myself in position to bring back these after-school activities and help these kids out in the community that come from broken homes like me. I went from a kid not knowing which way to go in life to a professional music and entertainment artist and entrepreneur, and I'm a father of 4 as well. The reason I'm homeless at this point is because me and my woman split, so I left her with the kids in the house, so it is what it is. But outside of that, shame on the Montgomery County Jail where citizens are merely charged and not yet convicted and are being treated less than human. That saying guilty until proven innocent must stand true. Shame on the correctional officers who don't respect inmates in the county jails. Shame on the deputies, the lieutenants, and the captains who practically co-sign and allow this disrespectful behavior. Shame on our so-called leaders who show no compassion or morality inside the courtrooms. And I'm telling y'all now, it's a huge disconnect between the judicial system and the community. And honestly, it's believed by me to be because of greed, racism, and other negative reasons that we have to come together as a whole and address. I personally know this paraplegic man and his family, and I'm telling you now, they're not bad people. So there's no excuse to why he was dragged in the streets like the video showed. It's definitely a conversation that has to be had between us all. And It has to be had with patience, clarity, understanding, compassion, morality, care, and concern. We can
Thank
no
you, Mr.
longer,
Lockett. Your time is up.
listen, I got all
Thank you,
day.
Mr.
Thank you,
Lockett.
Mr.
I'll
Lockett.
stand outside.
All right.
and
Thank you,
say-
Mr.
and say
Lockett.
the same message.
Mr.
Look at
Walken.
me. Just look at me, though. Look
Mr.
at me.
Mr. Walken,
Do you see me?
Mr. Walken, you're out of order. I'm sorry. You need to
Do you
take
see
your
me?
seat, please, Miss. I do see you, Mr.
Okay.
Walken. Please sit down.
Acknowledge me then.
Please, thank you. Please sit down.
That's gonna piss me off in here. I'm
All right.
telling you.
Thank you, Mr. Walken.
I don't mind going to jail.
Mr. Walken, you're out of order.
I'll run the jails.
I just need you to sit
I'll
down.
run the jails. I'll run.
Thank you, Mr. Walken.
I ain't scared of no goddamn jail. Acknowledge me.
I have acknowledged you. Thank you.
That is all, Your Honor.
Thank you, Ms. Blackshear. Look, I want
Can we
to,
have quiet in the chambers, please?
I appreciate everyone coming forward today on this early morning for a morning meeting. And I want to be really clear that I'm glad you're here, that we hear you, that I hear you. And on a human level, watching that video was incredibly painful for all of us. All right? I want to also say that we wanted to make sure that it's public. There was no hiding of this because of police reform, because of the work that police reform had began. We had no body cameras before that, and we had a process in place on how we were going to put this video out, which we did, and we expected the response, obviously, from the community.
Everybody deserves to see the rest of that video and everything that happened in the back of that cruiser.
Could we have quiet in the chambers, please?
Thank you, Mr. Owens.
I'm out of here. Get out. All that for me. They want to shut me up. They won't listen to me. Hey, we ain't gonna be the only ones bleeding in the streets. I'm telling you. I'm going my house with a SWAT team. That's not fair. Y'all know that's not fair. Y'all could have at least heard what he had to say. If that was the video that y'all, nobody else knew about.
Thank you, Mr. Cox.
I'll let the man.
I need an investigation on SWAT,
Y'all know better.
1107 Temple Avenue. How about them now?
That's not fair, Commissioner.
He ain't the only
No,
one.
that's not fair. That's easy.
Gonna roll all up in my neighborhood and blow up my house. Yeah, I did 6 months and everything for y'all. Yeah, you know what's up.
So I appreciate the comments today. The commission has clearly not shied away from these issues, and I'm proud of my colleagues for the work that we continue to do. This work is not over. We don't pretend this work is over, and we have lots still to do, clearly. We're committed to that. We're committed to this process. We're committed to making sure that we have a place where people are treated fairly and that everybody in our community is treated with dignity and respect, full stop. We know there is more work to do. We're still moving forward on it. We're still working forward on really tough issues that did not happen overnight and certainly aren't going to be solved even in 18 months. But we're committed, this commission and myself are committed to this process, and we're committed to making sure that we get to the other side of this issue, but all issues that can really make a difference to make our community safer and to make sure that people, that everyone gets treated with dignity and respect. With that, I'll turn it over to some of my commissioners to make comments as well. Commissioner Joseph.
Thank you, Mayor. I really appreciate your focus, Mayor, on making sure that we're treating everybody with dignity and respect. I spend an awful lot of time thinking about how to welcome newcomers to the community, folks that have nothing, and obviously we need to make sure we're applying that same criteria across the board to make sure that everyone's treated with dignity and respect. I will say that I'm very proud of the work of my working group, the Police Oversight Working Group, and it had something to do that it was mentioned a couple times today that some of the speakers mentioned that we need an independent look, someone not hired by the police department to look at incidents like this. And I'm happy to say that that was something that my group came up with. We came up with the independent accountability auditor that has the power to look at any case, to be in any meeting, to look at any record, to root out anything that happens that wasn't public or that maybe there was nobody there to see it. So it's still too early. It's underway. We're going to hire someone. It won't be hired by the police department. It'll be independent. Actually, we just decided last week it's going to be under the commission itself. So we're going to have direct oversight over the work of this independent person. So obviously the urgency is here. We need to get this done as quickly as possible. We know that. The city manager knows that. We're working as quickly as we can to make sure these things are put in place. Obviously, we have work to do, but we're here for it, and we're going to get it done.
Thank you. Commissioner Mims?
Painful. Yeah, clearly, obviously, I'm a black man. And I've spoken with many of you repeatedly about this issue and other issues. And I understand that you're upset, and so am I. And when we look across the nation at the type of treatment that's given to people of color across this nation, repeatedly having rights disrespected, some winding up injured, some winding up losing their lives. We tried very hard in Dayton, and we're still trying. The reason why we put together those whole use of force committees, all of them, to address these issues was not just because of the George Floyd situation. I think it was just overdue to do what we could to move the Dayton police force and this city into a better place so that these type of situations would not happen. The committee worked extremely hard on trying to find out the best things they could do that were reflected across the nation in terms of best practices. We're still working hard. We still don't have all the solutions right now. As was mentioned, again, dealing with proportionality is a very challenging and difficult issue. Our use of force group worked also in terms of making recommendations to the training group on how to de-escalate challenges and problems before they escalate into something that we see to potentially happen here. Additionally, we also put together a Know Your Rights component. In fact, we had the first meeting with the community just a few weeks ago, and our next meeting is going to be on December the 9th. And that committee is charged with communicating with members of this community repeatedly so they know their rights when they're confronted by the police, all in an effort to minimize some of the challenges that we're experiencing right now. Additionally, when we look at the situation that happened with Mr. Owensby, we would not have this data had it not been for the recommendation from my committee that said, let's have body cameras. That was the very, very first recommendation. It was the very first recommendation also that was adopted by this commission. And that is going to be a central and critical part of the investigation as we go forward. We're asking that we be as patient as we can. It's not easy. It's not easy for me. It's not easy for you. It's not easy for anyone up here on this dais. It has to be done. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Mims. Commissioner Shaw?
Yeah, well, thank you, Commissioner, for those remarks. This is painful. Very disturbing for me to watch the video. We have gone through a police reform process, and that's just what it is. It's a process. It was not going to change everything overnight, but it's to set up the opportunity for change in our community so that we are all safe. We've come a long way, but we've got an awful long way to go. And I would just urge all of you to be patient with us in this work. We want to get it right. We're going to make mistakes. And when we do so, we're going to be going about the work to correct those mistakes. But again, this is a process. And as a community, we're going to work through this process and make policing in Dayton better so that our citizens are safe and feel safe. So this is the work we're going to continue to do, and I know that my colleagues are committed to this work. I know that the members of the police reform committees are committed to this work. And we just have to trust that following through on these processes, making the changes that we can when we can, that we'll move forward and reach a better place.
Thank you, Mr. Fairchild.
Yeah. I want to thank everyone who came, including those who left already. You know, from day one, as a commissioner, I participated in the Community Police Council, and Mr. Mateo's back there, and Chief and Assistant Chief are here. You know that this isn't the first time we've had a conversation like this and dealt with an incident like this. And so this is really an extension of that conversation and the work we were doing with the CPC. And I would say we've taken a step forward in that sense, in that no longer is that conversation in one room, but we're having it in a more sustained and deliberate and engaged way. From the beginning, I've known that the success of our police reform work hinges on the quality of relationships that we can cultivate between the police and the community. And an incident like we experienced, Mr. Owensby experienced, and our police experienced, takes us a step back, quite frankly. But the test of our community is going to be how we work through this, how we're able to move through this strain of the relationship and move to a place where we can take steps forward in that relationship. And it's obvious here, you know, people walked out, and so that's a clear indication that the relationship's strained. And we're going to have to work to build that relationship to a place where our community wants it to be and it should be. You know, this incident, I think I said the first time, it was a gut, you know, kick in the gut to see the video. And it hits me personally as a person with a disability, as the co-leader of the training group, as a member of this community, as a leader of this city. And as I was talking with my colleagues, you know, he echoed what I was thinking. We must do better. We just simply must do better. In the training group, there were, you know, my colleagues have talked about the work we've done in each of the groups, and there's work that's been accomplished and there's work yet to be done. And I think, you know, a couple weeks ago, we talked about getting an update on where we are in police reform, and we talked about waiting for the implementation group to conclude its work. I'm not sure with the timing of that, but I think we need that update sooner, as soon as we can, particularly given some of the questions Mr. Mateo raised, and want to know the timing of those answers to those questions. In the training group, de-escalation was one of the key pieces, and there were two parts of that I think were germane to this. One is getting de-escalation into the use of force policy, but also getting our officers trained. And so in that update, would like to know where we are in that training of de-escalation. And what we learned in that de-escalation is that officers have the ability to use time, distance, and shielding as tactics in the midst of encounters that can help to de-escalate. And as the investigation comes, you know, it's premature to try to look into, just from a very short glimpse of what happened in that encounter, to know exactly whether those tactics were used or not, or how they could have used better. But I think the investigation needs to help us understand what tactics were used and which ones weren't used. And also in that, our group was around cultural competency. And I know that as a person with disability, you know, one of the things I'm reminded of all the time is that in every moment, I am simply more vulnerable than other people because of my disability. And I think training around cultural competency can help our officers and everyone understand something that's unique. And I'm also mindful that even while I have my experience as a person with disability, I don't have the experience of being an African man in this society. And so I can only get a sense of what that experience is. And And finally, I think that this incident and the conversation and the presence here just reiterates just how important the police reform work is for the well-being of our community. And there's an urgency that we need to be able to sustain as we do this work.
Thank you, Commissioner. Ms. Dickstein, will you make comments around the timeline of this investigation, et cetera?
Sure, Your Honor. First, I just want to assure all of you, as well as the community, that there has been substantial conversation internally with regard to this process, or with regards to this incident. Our leadership has repeatedly demonstrated the commitment to transparency, as you've already commented on. And as we process and work to thoroughly understand what occurred, we may remain committed to being transparent. It is critical that the community understands our investigative process and likely timeline for review. The primary purpose of a professional standards investigation is to determine whether the officer's actions were consistent with departmental policies, procedures, and training. To facilitate this, the assigned detective reviews and documents all available relevant materials. This review is extensive and includes crime and informational reports, field interview contacts, citations, regional dispatch center records, radio traffic, all video, body-worn and cruiser, photos, witness interviews, special reports, citizen complaint forms, criminal history, hospital documentation, medical records, applicable transcripts, training records, and all other relevant documentation. The PSB's review is detailed and exhaustive in that it will include anything listed that is relevant to the investigation. Once all relevant materials have been reviewed and analyzed, the detective concludes their investigation by conducting interviews of witnessing officers and involved officer interviews. These interviews are transcribed and then detailed by the detective in their investigative summary. The investigative summary is given to the Professional Standards Bureau commander, who is a lieutenant. Once the lieutenant reviews it, the investigative findings are drafted and sent to the deputy director and assistant chief for approval. Once approved, it is sent to the director and chief of police for approval. Considering the depth of an investigation of this nature and multi-levels of review, this process can and should take time. This is not a quick process because it is a thorough process. As of today, we are just 13 days from the interaction, and it will take time to complete the investigation. We anticipate an additional 4 to 6 weeks to review the until the investigation is concluded. We ask for continued patience and understanding, and again, certainly commit to the transparency of all of this information once it is concluded.
Thank you, Ms. Dickstein. And once it is concluded, will the investigation be public, everything made, or what is public in that?
I am not 100% certain as to what documents, but I believe the whole report, and I'm getting affirmation, is released to the public.
Okay, good.
And that certainly would be our intent.
Thank you.
Yep.